Hello and welcome to some more Kerbal Space Program. So I had a request for this and I'm gonna show you how to get to the moon in 0.18. So essentially 3 parts and we're gonna go through each of them separately. Now the first one and the simplest one, well, the last one you add, but the first one you use is the ascent stage, which is essentially 4 boosters along with, well, 4 solid boosters with 4 main cell rockets with double-length fuel tanks, as you can see, and those are attached with radial decouplers and feed into here. For launch stability we have docking clamps attached to the second tank. 2 delta wing thingies to minimize rolling, although it does not completely eliminate it. You can add winglets in place of those in order to have, you know, more control over the flight that way, but the SAS can overcompensate. And of course you have lots of struts to hold everything together. Now you need, well, you should strut things together in whatever way you think is best. It's a lot of it based on your own preferences, but what I would suggest you add is to have one set of struts going from this central part, the bottom of this central part, to the boosters here, and have at least one here, I mean one strapping things together here like this, and one on top and one in the middle, something like that. Of course I have a lot of stuff in the middle there too. So that's the first part. Now then we have the second part, and point of note, you can launch these 2 pieces separately, and that is actually easier because it does have a bit of trouble climbing into orbit, but well, that's that. It's easier to launch this way if you know a bit about the game and are comfortable with stuff like gravity turns. If you don't, you want to launch these 2 as separate pieces and dock them in orbit. So we have the transfer stage with a lot of RCS, a computer module and a nuclear reactor to make sure it doesn't run out of fuel. And essentially, yes, it has one of the Rockomax 200 fuel tanks and 2 of these double-length T800s and 4 nuclear engines and an SAS unit. Essentially this is what you'll leave in orbit around the moon, and you later on dock with it. So the way this works is you fly to the moon, you undock this, then you land, then you get back into orbit, you detach the bottom part of the lander and you get back in orbit. You get back to Kerbin. And then you trigger this decoupler, and these should be the other way around. Then you trigger this decoupler for your actual return. And then you trigger your parachutes. Anyway, yeah. This is that's the transfer stage. This really is what takes us there. And oh, these are wrong for some reason. Anyway, I've tested it, it flies nicely, it's nice and stable, plenty of extra fuel. Okay, so the fuel flows from these outer boosters into the center tank, and from the center tank into these. That's how it goes. Okay, so that should be more or less sorted out. Oh, and as for struts, I suggest you have one set of struts leading to the center part here, because having all of your ship tied nicely, well, this helps it. If you launch them together, it helps. Okay? Having all of your ship neatly tied to the docking port really makes the flight easier. It minimizes the wobble you have from the docking point. So you know, this is why these are strapped to here. Anyway, one leading to the center here and two leading to these, I would say. So that's it for transfer stage. Now to the lander. Oh yeah, and god damn it. Yes, a lot of RCS and linear RCS ports to help it turn, because the computer controlled ones have a real trouble turning on their own. And then we have the lander itself, which I'm gonna turn around. There we go. Simple design, 5 engines, and well, yeah, landing legs, well, the whole deal really. You get the idea. It's pretty simple. I did slightly adjust it when I actually... Okay. Anyway, here's the lander. The way... Well, yeah, it has a set of RCS thrusters here, another set up top, and RCS stuff here. And it's constructed in such a way that once you trigger these two decouplers, everything falls away, leaving just the command capsule and parachutes, which is useful. We have 4 radial fuel tanks which feed into the central one, and the central one feeds into the engine. So the way that works out is that essentially when these run out, you can still... These will run out first, but you can still keep firing these engines even after these run out using this tank. If, you know, you need the extra engine power to climb into the moon's orbit if you use too much of your fuel or whatever. So yeah, and then after you get up there, you transfer the rest of your fuel over to the transfer stage and use that to launch. Anyway, I'm gonna launch it, make sure that the lander part is working properly, that the landing legs reach far enough, because I had to make an adjustment there in order to get the ladder to reach the ground properly. And yeah, it works out alright. I will move those slightly downwards actually. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna show you how it works. See, it's draining from here, but not from here. So these can be detached first. You can then do this, and you're left with this. Anyway, now let's load the properly working one and actually fly to the moon and see how it behaves. It's 180 parts, and that is with a fuck ton of struts everywhere. So yeah, another thing, make sure you get your staging right. It involves a lot of stages, and yeah, best not screw it up. Now what we will do is, excuse me, and now it won't reload that. I want to move those a tiny bit down, because if I touch down a bit too roughly, I'll explode this engine. Although it's not such a huge deal, for the simple reason that we can afford to lose that one as long as we keep the outside ones, I suppose. But that is the wrong way, like this. Okay, and now it's attached the wrong way, like this, please. Thank you. Okay, so let's save, make sure we haven't missed anything. Apparently we have. What am I doing there? Okay, this should detach first. There, like that. Okay, staging's fine, let's launch. Now, yeah, you can see that has... well, it's pretty self-evident. I think you can see everything that it's constructed out of, really. So, yeah. Solid boosters, these orange tanks, then these tying into that. Fuel feeding from these into the central one, into here. And up here we had that weird fuel feed thingy. And here we have 4 radially mounted RCS tanks and 1 small RCS tank, plus we have an advanced SAS unit on here to actually make it fly straight, and I think that shouldn't smack into the launch tower, hopefully. Now, you do want to watch the overheating on these engines very carefully when you launch, because they do try to overheat, and you should throttle down as they start to overheat. So let's just fly and I'll show you. And the sound is off, but I'd prefer if you concentrated on my talking here in any case, I suppose. Yeah, and see, the one thing it does try to do is it tries to rotate, and you can see it's overheating, so right about here take it down 2 notches. Slowly, carefully. We need all the speed we can get, because we're gonna have to finish our orbit on the nuclear engines. This thing is pretty heavy if you launch it, if you launch both modules at the same time, which is unfortunate. Oh yes, and I forgot to mention, damn it, you want, god damn it, yeah, and we can't, god damn it, yes, you want to set yourself to control from, and those are spent, you want to set yourself to control the ship from the computer core instead of the command pod. Well, because your nav ball and your controls will be screwed up otherwise, because this is facing downwards in this flight. So you want to adjust for that, and we are rotating, and right about here we want to start slowly gravity turning. About 60 degrees will do for now. We want to start heading sideways pretty quickly. These engines, especially as they drain their fuel, accelerate very quickly, so once you get above 13,000 you want to turn relatively quickly. Yeah, see, 18,000, we already want to be at 45 degrees here. Okay, ascent should be good. Yeah, you can see that going way up there. And I'm gonna turn some more. Ooh, okay, there. And we're gonna set that as our target. Ooh, and we won't have to orbit too far when going for it, which is excellent. See, yeah, I think it's better to launch it in one piece if you can handle that. And you want to throttle down just before you have to detach those. Very important bit, that throttle down before detaching. Anyway, you can physically time warp if it's all strapped together. I haven't tried to do it without that. I'm gonna use the RCS to stabilize things. Okay, that's about right. Oh, god damn it. Yeah, the fucking RCS. Anyway, let's try that again. Actually, since I did go to this accidentally, we're gonna do it slightly differently. And for those of you who have trouble getting to the moon, tricky part in your flight like that could be nasty. So add 2 of these. Use the W, ASD, Q and E keys to rotate parts. Then angle them upwards, and then press shift to turn things at smaller increments, and turn them 2 notches towards the craft, and add another one here and do the same thing, 2 notches towards the craft. That way, when they detach, they'll be pushed away from the ship, and backwards and you'll be safe. Now let's try that again. Okay, and we're waiting. So still below 200 parts. Oh, well and good, we can work with this. I think I have the staging right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do. This time we're gonna remember to control from here from the start and we should be good. Okay, accelerating. Yeah, these wobble a bit. You can strap them to the craft more carefully if you want, but I haven't had any trouble yet, and yeah, I've probably jinxed it. We're gonna have trouble right now, but anyway, remember to throttle down, and we're on our way yet again. Anyway, yeah, speaking of other projects, I've actually managed to build a plane that can fly on Duna safely. It's a plane slash rover which should allow us to search for the anomalies pretty comfortably, and I'm gonna leave the transfer stages I have in Duna orbit there to act as refueling platforms in case the plane runs out of fuel while trying to rendezvous with the mothership. That way I can bring one of those close to the plane and use it to, you know, can use it to refuel the plane, because it has plenty of fuel to fly around, but it might not have enough for a rendezvous if our orbits end up not matching up too well. And I want to start my gravity turn about here, say 60 degrees will be fine. Yeah, it's heavy with a lot of engine power, so you want to start your turn pretty quickly. The moment you pass 13,000 you should slowly, but you should be turning slowly but pretty constantly. Okay, how's that doing? That is good, but we will throttle down to minimize that. Just stop the roll. Yeah, that's not helping. Okay, we are passing 35, so we're gonna keep burning at a 10-degree up angle at this point. We're running out of fuel. We're gonna want to throttle down once we hit about 100 on liquid fuel. Until then, about half thrust works out well, I suppose. What's our trajectory looking like? Our trajectory is good. If we had turned later, our orbit would be weird that we would need even more fuel to get there. So, see, they collide with each other, but they don't collide with us, so we're safe there. So, our orbit should be high enough, so we want to turn like this on the horizon, and now we can time warp safely. And we will do just that. Yeah, this is the trickiest bit. You can rendezvous the two pieces in orbit, but then you'll have more wobble when you fire the main engine on your way to the moon. Or you can launch them together and deal with some small trouble getting it into orbit. And let's hope that we actually manage it. Ooh, and we're starting to fall again. I don't like that. Let's give ourselves a bit of an up angle there to compensate for that somewhat. We should manage to get into orbit, I hope, but it can be a bit icky. Yeah, we're gonna dip into the atmosphere for a little bit, but we should climb back out again. It's unfortunate, but can't be helped if you want to launch it in one piece, or you have to build a bigger delivery system which has its own troubles. But this is most definitely a design that can get to the moon, and since the landings are the most dangerous part... Whoa. Yeah, you might want to Yeah, maybe we did gravity turn too quickly. How high are we gonna climb there? Not that high. Let's push our orbit out and... Yes, anyway. This will get you there. But getting into orbit is a bit tricky. Although having trouble getting into orbit is still not as bad as having trouble actually landing and getting back because you've wasted less time. And what is that? That was supposed to crash into curb, and it has a nice slow periapsis that should mean a nice solid crash, which it didn't do. Anyway, yes, I did the gravity turn a bit too aggressively, I suppose. You'll need to practice with this design a few times before you can get it right, I suppose. But as you can see, even though I screwed it up slightly, we're still fine. It has enough fuel and enough power to make it. It can be just a bit finicky at times. Now, of course, there's all kinds of ways you can get to the moon, but we want something which is as foolproof as possible for the getting there and for the coming back. So yes, you can add more rockets to the delivery mechanism, an extra solid booster or some external fuel tanks or something might do wonders. It's up to you. Or yeah, essentially this design has one flaw: the gravity turn. If you do it at the right time, and if you don't do it, if you do it right, you'll get there, and you'll get there easily and everything will be fine. If you don't, you're gonna dip back into the atmosphere and you're gonna have to burn more fuel to climb back out again. But even so, we managed. Although yeah, I think I did screw that up. So hereabouts, and feel free to use the maneuver nodes to check your planned maneuvers. Whoa. And anyway, and if I burn slightly more, I want the moon periapsis. It's not showing me one. There we have one. Okay, so 700 meters of delta V, that is perfectly manageable. So about here we want to start burning. So let's turn the RCS on, however shortly, and actually do our burn. So yes, getting to the moon isn't a problem, although you might want to do these... Oh god damn it, these engines, they're supposedly vectoring, but they don't really give you a lot of oomph as far as turning power is concerned. Anyway, you might... It depends on how good you are and what you're good at. If you're good at making more powerful rockets, if you can make a more powerful rocket than that, then you can do that. If you're good at doing the gravity turns just right, then you can do that. Or if you're okay at rendezvous and you suck at the other two, you can just launch these two as separate pieces, and that will work too. So it really depends on what you're strong at. If you aren't that experienced at this game, you should launch the lander and the transfer stage as separate pieces and dock them together afterwards. The new maneuver nodes and, well, not the maneuver nodes, but the new mapping system for, you know, they're selecting your target, which I would like to select. Thank you. Why won't it let me select the moon? Press tab to cycle back to my ship. Maneuver 1. Screw maneuver 1, we don't want that anymore. thank you. Okay, now we can do that. Okay, there we go. Let's turn ourselves since we've drifted off course. Anyway, this new system, yeah, we can see where we're approaching the moon, and that gives us a periapsis. We want a low periapsis relatively of, say, about 100. Well, actually about 60 will do fine, but anywhere between 150 and 50 kilometers will be good. Cause, well, yeah, just cause. In any case, yes, you might want to dock those two pieces together, but and you could probably return with just this piece if you got to the moon, and you could probably, well, you could do it differently is what I mean, but this is a cooler way of doing it, I think, and I think it will work pretty well. So we wait until we are nice and close to our periapsis. We're going to need about 300 meters per second of delta V, and you saw how slowly it burned, so that means we're going to burn for about a minute and a half here, I think. Something like that anyway. So we need to start burning a bit before our periapsis to swing into the orbit we want. And yes, feel free to use the RCS. This design has one of these big tanks here, and you can use it to refuel your other tanks before you decouple there, so feel free to use it to help with your turns if you feel that it is necessary or helpful. Yeah, this ship is kind of designed to make things, the really hard parts, easy. The getting into orbit part, well, there you just have to time your gravity turn and how far you turn. Measure how far you turn right. That is relatively easy, and well, yeah, like I said, you might want to launch this as separate pieces and dock them in orbit. Okay, so now we have a okay-ish orbit. So what we want to do now is we want to turn this thing to point either northwards or southwards, because if we point towards 90 or 270, and you want an equatorial orbit around the moon, which is relatively easy to get actually. Anyway, what I was saying, yeah, you want to point it north or south, because 90 or 270 your craft will rotate, but if you point it northwards your ship will always stay pointed northwards, you see, like this. So it will be easier to dock with later on. Now we can quickly refill these, not that we'll need that much RCS, but I personally land without RCS, but we will need some for the docking, and this ship is also designed to have enough RCS for maneuvers near the ground and adjustments, if that's how you prefer to land, namely with RCS. So there's plenty to work with, which is the whole idea, to give you everything you need to land on the moon and return comfortably. So we're gonna do just that in a second. After we've refilled things, we're gonna do a nice smooth landing, and then we're gonna climb back into orbit, rendezvous with the ship and head back home. So very shortly now, and yes, this one is still half full. Okay, we need to make sure it's as northwards and on the horizon. Okay, so now we set this to control from here. We're gonna leave the SAS on. Yes, and you'll have to be pointed southwards in order to dock with this. Remember this, if this is pointed northwards, this needs to be pointed southwards, and then when we come in for docking, well, you'll see, but all we'll have to do is move ourselves, move the target around until we're, by translating, until we're pointing straight at it, and well, point is, it makes it easier to align with the docking hatch. So now let's decouple, and it also has the added benefit of being able to just turn away from the ship that you're leaving here and burn this way. So first things first, use some of this RCS to help get us moving away from it ever so slowly, so that we don't hit it with our engine exhaust and push it off course. We could fix that, but that would take time and that would be annoying. Next we want a landing site. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring this side of our orbit into about, say, well, 10,000, 8,000, something like that. And then we're gonna wait until we're there, and then we're gonna do a burn to bring us in. So you can do it differently if you want, but I find that this is the way that works. We're gonna go with, well, it depends. You should be about 15 kilometers up when you start your burn. So right, and let's ignite. These are burning. Oh, and okay, 12 kilometers right over this crater, or more or less. Let's bring it into 10. Anyway, you might want to give yourself a bit more room if it's your first time trying to land on the moon. So yeah, and if it's your first time trying to land on the moon, you probably want to launch these as separate pieces and dock them together in orbit, because it will quite simply be safer that way. Okay, so now we're over the crater. Whoa, yeah, that time warp went quickly. So we just point ourselves retrograde and we burn like crazy until our speed is killed. And we'll have to shift somewhat. Anyway, yeah, these external tanks, the main reason I added them is because if its weight is spread out more sideways, it is easier to turn around, and that's a cool view incidentally. Anyway, it's easier to turn around in a way that, let's do it like this, that does not spiral out of control, because if it was just this part, every time you turned it, it would end up wobbling all over the place, whereas this is more or less stable, and it also gives you, spreads your landing legs out on a wider base, which makes you more stable as you come in for a landing, which is also a good thing. Yeah, and this gives us enough engine power to, as we drift over the landscape, to slowly come down pretty damn easily. I mean, you can see that we killed pretty much all of our speed and we're still moving. I mean, we haven't fallen a great deal, we've just gone down by about a kilometer since we started our burn, and that's it. So what you want to do here is kill most of your speed. Well, the way I would suggest doing it, if you take this approach to landing, and you can of course do it your own way, kill most of your speed slowly, carefully, and then come straight down and do tiny adjustments as you come down. And what you can do is, short of using RCS, you can just point yourself upwards, leave the RCS on, and then if you turn the ship, you will turn slightly this way or that way, and your engines will help you kill your lateral horizontal speed with their thrust. See, like this, I turn this way, so I'll push myself slightly more in one direction, and that will help shift things around. And you can actually, yeah, select one of the guys with this. This gives you a view of the radar altitude, which is an important piece. It will show you once you're below 3,000 kilometers how far away from the actual surface you are, because otherwise this does not measure your distance to surface, it measures your altitude to sea level, which is different and pretty much always higher, which would be a bad thing for you because it means smacking into things, which is a bad thing. Anyway, this is something you want to watch. You have your vertical speed, you have your surface speed, you have your nav ball. You could actually land from this view if you wanted, but you can quickly switch from this to that using C, which is what you should do. When you need a glance at the radar altimeter, just leave your view on this, then you can shift to this view and back to this when you need a glance at that. Okay, we've slowed down a bit too far. Let's kill that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, you should be burning slowly all the way down. And okay, so right now at this altitude you should probably keep your speed nice and low. I mean, once you're below 10,000 meters, you shouldn't move faster than 50 meters per second unless you really know what you're doing. And you should probably cut it to about 30 when you're at 3,000, and well, something like that. I'm not gonna give you, well, I can't give you numbers that exact because I'm not that pro at it. I generally don't go to the moon these days, I go to other places, but anyway, we are below 3,000, so we will deploy our landing legs, which will change how our ship turns. Yeah, this does change things because their weight is spread in that direction. Well, it's spread out differently is what I mean. Anyway, our altitude is below 2,000, so about 20 meters per second is good at this altitude. You can move it to about 10 once you're below 1,000, and then just... Okay, so 2.5 here, about 2 here, so this is about 600 meters up. It gives you some idea how high up you are based on this view. I'm moving too quickly, so I nudge my engines up slightly. I don't do it too much because, yeah, slight nudges on the throttle, don't go crazy at it, just patiently. Okay, so the speed goes slightly down, and then I'll keep it going down until we hit 10 meters per second, and then I'm gonna, well, we'll see. But anyway, yeah, you don't need to kill your speed that quickly, so you know, don't go crazy with the throttle, just unless you really have to, just slight nudges up and down. Keep your speed at the... yeah, and the thing is that these engines are strong enough to slow you down the way you need to be slowed down, while at the same time being weak enough that you can carefully measure out just how much oomph you're giving your ship. So that is also a good thing which will give you more control. Yes, and you can see that these are almost spent on our landing. So yeah, this is essentially the landing stage, and that will be the launch stage. And this is why it's important to be able to feed fuel into these. Yes, important thing, the fuel from this tank needs to feed into directly into the engines there. Yeah, we are really low down, so okay, you can use the RCS to help you. Okay, and we can see our shadow now. You can use the RCS to help manage your speed, to slow yourself down or to speed yourself up, and I'm gonna actually use it, which I haven't done in a while, to help with the adjusting. So you can do it like this. You can set your speed so that you are slowly speeding up without RCS, but slowly slowing down with it, so that you can just touch down and then turn off the RCS the moment you touch down, like this. And we bounced slightly, but we can just cut our engines and we'll be good. Retoggle the SAS, and now if we wanted to, we could extend our ladders. If we could just find them, they're here, right? We could just extend our ladders and walk around on the moon, and our landing stage is nearly spent, but we don't need that much fuel to actually land. And this is slightly ahead of us, so you should wait until it's more or less overhead before burning for an intercept. But right now I'm gonna burn as is. We'll have to do a few adjustments in orbit, but that should be okay. So I'm gonna launch, I'm gonna rendezvous it, and we're gonna go home. So 90 degrees, like this. You might actually want to aim towards your thingy instead of landing straight on the equator, and yeah, you want these to burn these out, get a bit of speed, and then feel free to dump them. Once these tanks are spent, you can just detach them. The engines will turn off the moment you detach them because the fuel flow will just be gone, obviously. And this has enough power to lift us into moon orbit. We'll just do it a bit more slowly, and that's it. So what we have to do now, and I'm gonna use the time warp for this, and it turns really, it's really jittery on the turning like this, so which is why I added those extra tanks, mostly for stability really. They really help with that. Because yeah, I kind of wanted a design that made it easy to land on the moon and come back from it. Unfortunately, it's a bit difficult to launch, but just remember, struts are your friends. Watch your ship in flight, see where it wobbles if you're having trouble with that, and you should be good. So, okay, we're gonna head up there, then we're gonna do another burn to put us in a stable orbit, and then just gonna rendezvous with it. We're gonna get us close enough to an orbit to... Actually, we're gonna wait slightly beyond that. Okay. Okay, so you're gonna get us into enough of an orbit to come... Well, what we want is to get a very close intersect with it, and that's what we're after. To do that, we're gonna have to be in an orbit, but yeah, make sure you have a stable orbit, at least like 25 kilometers above the surface, and that you have a close intersect, and that's all you really need. Once you get close, you're... Yeah, see, it's not too hard, just wait until it's more or less overhead and then go for it. Get close, then kill your speed relative to target, and well, we'll see in a second. Yeah, see, we're low down, so it doesn't want time warp too much, so... Anyway, just get close to the target, then what you want to is kill your speed relative to the target, aim straight at the target and burn towards it while watching the map view. So 17.2 meters per second, that's nothing. Even with a dinky little engine like this, we're gonna be fine. Okay. And of course I'm using the tiny 1 meter engines there. Okay, so at this rate we would next intersect would be at 11 kilometers there, but if we burn straight towards it, this goes way down, and you need to adjust it to get the prograde marker to be straight over your target marker. Okay, that looks pretty okay. That's 400 meters. I'd like 300. Okay, that will do. Now we're just gonna wait until we get close, and we're gonna turn ourselves around the other way right now, because it can be deceptive how when you get that close you're moving in slowly, and suddenly you're shooting past it and you no longer have enough time to turn and slow yourself down in time. So we're gonna do another burn towards the target, this time purely visually. And yeah, we still have plenty of fuel left over, so there is reserves to work with if you're having trouble with that. So okay, so it was pointing northwards, I think, so we're gonna have to point southwards to make it happen. No, so this way. Okay, yeah, and we're gonna adjust ourselves so that we're moving slightly past the target like this. And I should have turned around. Well, I'll do it now. Am I on the right side? I can't see, god damn it. am I on the right side? I don't think I am actually. No. The RCS part is on top, so no, I am not. But that's okay. I'm gonna point myself southwards. Whoa. And the rest of the flight we're gonna do entirely on the RCS. Okay. So, first things first. Like this, so that we can orient ourselves. Okay. You can use the moon as point of reference to know what is below you. This marker helps as well. You want to be more or less in between this and this, if you can see my mouse. If you can't, you want to be between your target and the retrograde marker. Okay. So see how that's partially because of RCS, but still. Okay, so now we are gonna set this on horizontal, and actually we're gonna accelerate forward so that we are moving at it. We can use a bit of time warp to help us with this, actually. And now we want to be heading in like that, set the docking port as our target, and we should be just drifting in. Okay, so it's actually managed to drift off course, which is really rather uncool of it in my opinion. Apparently it's decided to turn off the SAS for some reason. I don't approve of this, but we will correct it shortly. Yes, if you have to readjust it, or if you forgot to set it northwards, turn it afterwards. Oh, and the linear RCS port, it keeps it from altering, it just keeps it turning in that direction. The way it's set up, it only turns using RCS, that's it. It doesn't do anything else with it. It doesn't move forwards, backwards, so you won't get like large amounts of lateral speed there for no reason. Okay, like that should be good, and we should be able to dock pretty easily there. Alright. Okay. Shift it that way, that should be good, and we should be just about docked really, I think. Yes, as long as they're more or less facing each other and pretty close to each other, they will in fact attract. So, we're nearly there. All we have to do is get home. So what we will do is transfer all of this fuel into the central tank here, whatever we have left, because this feeds into all four of these, and otherwise it would be unbalanced. Then we press space to decouple that. There we go. Then we take a good first thing first, we make sure that being controlled from here, there we go. Then we use our maneuver nodes to figure out the right spot to actually go for curbing to get the lowest possible apoapsis with the least fuel. No. Sorry, not apoapsis, periapsis. And if we burn slightly more, there we go. So burn thereabouts, and we will get a nice good approach vector. And since we've gotten rid of that part, we can actually turn without RCS and turn pretty well. That was weird, but in any case, yeah, if you manage to launch it in one piece, you can burn at physical time warp, which is Alt plus the time warp buttons. Whoa. Not my burn time yet. That was me being stupid, incidentally. Anyway. I'm not under acceleration. Yeah, it can be weird like that. If it does that, turn the SAS off and time warp without it on, and turn it on when you need to actually do your burn. Anyway, you can use the physical time warp each time you need to use the nuclear engines if it's properly strapped together and launched in one piece like that, which makes using them far less of a pain. And since we only need about 25 seconds of burn here, I'd say it's just fine waiting until we actually hit the node. Well, yes, and let's time warp for a tiny bit. So yeah, we need really very little actual engine to make this happen. So I'm gonna pull this into about 25,000. We're gonna wait until we actually switch the spheres of influence, because it sometimes lies about what your periapsis is gonna be after you change spheres of influence, and I do not want this to get screwed up. So that is looking good. Actually, the maneuver we can, come on, get rid of. There we go. Maneuver's gotten rid of. So now we don't need this piece, and we would like it to go away. So another decouple said, I'm still in time warp. Another decouple, and all we have is our command part with a lot of samples from the moon and our parachutes, and there we are. We're on our way back. 4 parachutes radially mounted. Align them with this piece here and it will be fine. It won't cover anything important, and it will give it plenty of oomph to actually land safely. And we can just watch our approach as we come streaking in back from the moon. Oh, and look at that speed mounting up. And here we go. I'm gonna use a bit of physical, and I'm gonna use the SAS to help stabilize it, because it's gonna be weird otherwise. Anyway, yeah, nice high altitude. We come in nice and shallow. We'll deploy our parachutes once we've burned off our speed, and we're gonna be just fine. Now, you need to think carefully about how you want to do the launch part, because really, it depends. If you can launch it in one piece, I think you should. It makes everything easier, I think. But you might want to do it in 2 pieces and just dock them together. It's up to you. You can just refuel the RCS from the transfer part later on if you need to actually dock it like that. It's fine, you can do it either way. But I just think launching it in one piece works better. But like I said, it's entirely up to you. If you do that, make sure you do your gravity turn just right. And there we go, we've safely returned. So, hope you enjoyed this. Leave your comments, especially questions if there's anything you don't understand or would like clarified. Well, the comment section is your friend. And yes, if you are gonna launch it in one piece, watch that gravity turn. It can screw you up slightly. You should be fine either way, but be careful. Anyway, yeah, and if your transfer stage does run out of fuel, you can still land on the moon, I think, and it should have enough fuel left to... Well, you saw how much fuel we had left over. You can take off and get back to Kerbin using just a lander. But it's cooler to do it this way, so yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.